All right, everybody. Thank you very much. 2:03. We like to get started on time. Very excited. We're gonna have a good conversation. Our prep call was amazing, and I'm looking forward to this. So we got Hiba Mooney, who's the AVP of Energy and Sustainability at Saks Global, and Ty Coleman, who, if there is a godfather of carbon accounting, I will bestow that title upon you, because you've been doing it for like 120 years
I
or 15 years or something.
I mean,
Yeah,
the Grays tell it, right?
He only
the
looks
great
25.
The great tell it. Believe it or not, there was a time before carbon accounting software, and you lived in that time. And then you transitioned very nicely into the modern world. And so I want to learn a lot about that. And actually, that is sort of where I want to start. So, Hiba, maybe what I'm curious about from a purely carbon perspective is how would you describe the evolution of carbon accounting from before technology came around to after it came around, from maybe when it was an experimental, like companies are trying to put this thing together, to now we can actually use this data. Like if you were writing the book on the history of carbon accounting, what would
Yeah.
be in this table of contents?
I mean, spreadsheets that have never gone away, I think. That's where we all started. And I don't think that they will, I think they're still a very big part of what we do because I think the spreadsheets still capture a ton of information that platforms are not necessarily all picking up right now to this day. But I think you had those disparate spreadsheets on folks' computers all over the organization. You had, difficulty getting information from different organizations because they didn't necessarily understand the information that you needed. And then, came along the environmental health and safety platforms that started to look into carbon accounting and how they were going to put in algorithms that picked up emission factors and calculated your data for you. And so, was that the best way to do things? I think we were all working with those partners, with those platform partners at the beginning as environmental health and safety and sustainability professionals and trying to put those algorithms into those platforms and help them build that from the ground up. And now you have, the evolution of those platforms in the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years. Everyone got into the carbon accounting platform market, and so you had a lot of different vendors to choose from. And really, what it comes down to, at least from my perspective, is understanding what you actually need out of the platform. And that evolution is happening right now, where folks are, depending on the size of their teams, depending on the size of um, uh, what they have internally, the resources they have internally, evaluating platforms and really what they need out of it. Do they just need a reporting tool? Do they need a tool that can speak to the rest of the organization, make useful decisions on climate risk, on, any of their programs where they have a return on investment on their energy efficiency or energy procurement? And so you have these platforms that can do a lot, and it's really up to you as the leader within the organization, within the sustainability team, to determine with your partners what you actually need out of those platforms. So it's been a fun journey watching that. No secret for all of your listeners that I partner with Ty on this. And so we've kind of evolved through that together as well, through my experience at Hewlett Packard Enterprise and now at Saks, now Exemplar Luxury Group. We just emerged from bankruptcy about a week ago. So we're really excited with our new name, Exemplar Luxury Group. And so, it's a partnership between the sustainability teams. It's a partnership with the vendor that you choose, the vendor that you're working with, and what expertise you need out of them.
It's interesting that you started your answer with the word spreadsheets. I used to be a salesperson at carbon accounting software, and in 2022, our whole sales pitch was, "Oh my gosh, use spreadsheets. You have to buy software." And it worked. It was a great pitch. They're like, "Oh yeah, how could we still be using spreadsheets?" And I don't know that it's making a full comeback straight to spreadsheets, but I did earlier today have a conversation with a credible sustainability manager that is considering churning off of their carbon accounting software to go back into spreadsheets because they know how to do it all. They're able to do a lot of it. I actually know a, call it, mid-sized publicly traded tech company that was with a large carbon accounting software for a very long time, turned off of it a year ago, is back to spreadsheets. Ty, you've rode the journey, built part of that journey. Some of it's your fault, some of it's just the wave that you're on. I'm curious and maybe your answer to this would change every 2 years, but was the promise of software that spreadsheets couldn't fulfill? And then where do you think spreadsheets are still the goat and they're just something
Yeah.
to it in carbon accounting that they have a role to play?
Yeah, and apologies if I'm freezing here on you. I think we've taken a lot of steps forward in moving away from bespoke spreadsheets and, you know, manual data manipulation into what we're able to do now, but we're not fully away from that. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. There are source systems and, proprietary technologies and things within organizations that are inherent to what they do. And we're not necessarily going to change that. And we need to adapt our software to be able to accommodate what they are used to. And in some cases, that is spreadsheets. Like for the biggest companies in the world, we work with folks, broad spectrum, but I'll focus on our Fortune 100 customers. There is still spreadsheets being used for a lot of different things there. And so we need to be able to accommodate that, right? There's a lot of things we can integrate with there as well and bring in raw data and not have to do manipulations and those kind of things too. But it really has to run the gamut. And I think what you saw 2, 3, 4 years ago was a little bit of an oversell, a little bit of a, over your skis on we can do everything, we will solve the world, you will never touch a spreadsheet again. And you know, I may have said the same thing at that time, but I think the recognition now is there is still some of that, but we can harness a lot of really great things from software to automate, to standardize, to reduce risk and data entry and error, those kind of things, and get the time back for sustainability professionals to be able to do the critical elements of where do we decarbonize, where do we reduce costs, how do we share this across the organization, report, whatever that may be, and really spend the time on those focus areas than data exchange, data transformation, those kind of things.
Yeah. And I guess part of that is like maybe you can talk a little bit about it and then Hiba, you can chime in, but what is the life cycle of an emissions analysis? What I mean is, what are the reasons you might want to do with it? So there's like, you want to input some data into a thing, you want to extract some information out of like a utility bill, multiply that by an emissions factor. That feels partially software because you got to extract, and that's hard, but also spreadsheety because you're multiplying a number by a number. You might want some charts and some graphs to be able to like share with people and slice it by country and say, hey, Germany, your emissions are higher than England. Deal with that. You may want to put that into a report, and specifically for California or specifically for Australia. So again, you want to like extract information in certain ways. You might want to build a strategy on top of that, which feels like a difficult thing to do in software because it's a narrative and it's a conversation. What are some of the steps, again, that like software is really, really good at supporting in the emissions journey, and what are some of the steps that have to go outside of the software, maybe Ty from your perspective, and then Hiba?
I, the common thread, I think, from everything you said, which is spot on, is shareability. So this data
Mm.
needs to be brought together in a coherent place and then shared. A lot of times that's shared internally. So you're giving it to the facilities team to look at, you know, high energy cost per square foot places, or they have their own disclosure. That's a sharing of data internally or externally. It's all about the sharing of that information, and everyone's going to do that a little bit differently. And so what we try and facilitate is let's get it in the easiest way possible. And this is where humans are often in the loop. Our team often leans into helping smaller teams unpack their data and get it into the system. You know, again, we're working with sustainability teams that have 2, maybe 3 people. They just don't have the resources to be able to compile all this from, 5, 6, 7, 10 different departments and bring it all in one spot. Okay, great. We can come in and we can lift and make some of that happen. And I think that, our team does a fair amount of that with organizations. And we hand over the finished product and allow them to slice and dice and share that in ways that you just can't do. And that's where the spreadsheet really drops, I think, right? You've got one source of record, everybody's looking at the same thing. It's automatically updated in real time versus the spreadsheet that maybe is on Hiba's local drive, or maybe you have it in a SharePoint, but it's still somebody can make an error, do this. You got to do so many different things and protections and other things there. It just doesn't really end up being the place where you go to all the time. That's where software, I think, can really take over. Shareability, and then the slicing and dicing that information for the various stakeholders that need to consume it and use it for the value that they bring to the organization.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Heba, what do you think? Where do you take
I
over?
think I'll add definitely shareability, and I think that pairs well with credibility too. So, my example that I always cite, and it has to do with working with Optera all these years, is we shared our data with our suppliers too. So the data that I was seeing was the data that the suppliers were seeing, and they could make sense of the information that they had reported through CDP. Um, they could see what targets they needed to meet to be a science aligned target. So they could get information from the software to understand that when they showed up in a QBR and a quarterly business review, and I said, hey, you're not meeting expectations on your science-based targets, or you haven't set them yet, or your trajectory doesn't look good for the next 5 years, they could use and interact with that information the same way I was using and interacting with that information. So we were all kind of playing from the same sheet of music, that you won't necessarily get with spreadsheets, because well, that's a spreadsheet on your drive and my
Mhm.
data looks different, right? But you can say, hey, this is the information that I input for you, and this is what it looks like, and we're all talking the same language. So I think it does add a layer of credibility in your process and your methodology, um, for those partners who you've either mandated to do something, or there's some ongoing partnership in developing those and meet
Yeah.
those goals.
I mentioned this conversation I had earlier today, and it just really stuck with me because this person who's on one of the big carbon accounting softwares was saying that he took a KIP climate kind of AI course, and a lot of his carbon sustainability buddies in that course have been talking about what is the role of carbon accounting software. And one of the things you do in this KIP climate course is you vibe code out a carbon accounting software. It's a bunch of charts and graphs and kind of spreadsheet and a thing. And it was cool. And what we agreed on is that no one's vibe coding great software, but you can very quickly vibe code kind of bad software or very kind of niche software. And what that does is not, no one's again vibe coding their own carbon accounting platform if you have all the needs of a platform, but it does mean your standards go up and your knowledge of what you need goes up and your expectations should be higher of your vendors. Hiba, I'm curious, and this is not meant to be an ad for Optera, so try not to make it if you can. But I'm curious if today you were going out to buy a carbon accounting software, what would be your process? What are you looking for? What questions are you asking? What technologies have to be a part of that? What feels like excessive? You can talk about it in the context of pretend Exemplar Group had nothing today, and you were trying to do that, or kind of maybe it's different for the different types of companies you've been at before. But what would be your approach? What kind of questions are you
Yeah.
asking?
And I'm saying this with the context of someone who's been doing this for a really long time. So I will ask the vendor questions that they might not be used to being asked if they were just going out to a company that didn't have a sustainability team or a sustainability expert at it. But I want to know like a full, like transparent day one cost from the vendor. So there's a lot of work to be done before the data is even analyzed. You have to understand what data the company currently has, in what format, if it's clean, credible, how much cleaning up will the vendor need to do. Um, you know, a lot of software providers will sell, hey, we have this AI powered tool that cleans up your data, but it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. If I'm giving you a whole bunch of nonsense, then what are you actually cleaning up? Um, I'm dealing with millions of lines of data. And so, to Ty's earlier point, I don't have necessarily the freedom of giving up three of my people on my team to go through that data. So I'm looking for a vendor that has built-in expertise on carbon accounting. So it's not just the platform will do it all for you. I actually need someone who's going to answer my questions and talk to me intelligently about the GHG protocol, what's in, what's out, how do I look at category 15 under scope 3, and I want to be able to partner with them in that way. So kind of an expert consultant plus the
So I mean, it is almost like it's not about the buttons in the software.
not
That's
at
all there
all.
as a reason to talk to a smart person. Like you're looking for a software that comes with a smart person.
I'm looking for
Uh,
this. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm looking for.
Why not just go with a consultant then? Like then in that case, if you're
Well,
looking for a
because then
smart
I have
person.
different, so then I have different vendors to deal with to get to one
Hmm.
thing, right? So then I have
Hmm.
the in implementation partner.
Hmm.
And this is all through experience. So I have the implementation partner, and then I have the kind of like architecture design partner who's going to help
Hmm.
figure out what I actually need in the software. Then I have the actual software provider. And then when I have questions about the tech itself, then I have to buy more hours. So getting the full package and the full upfront cost is incredibly important to me because I can't go back in 6 months and say, actually, hey,
I
finance,
need an extra 20 grand or whatever.
I
Yeah.
need another $50,000 because oops, I forgot to ask for tech support in the platform. So there's again, these are lessons learned for folks who are going into this who might be kind of blind to all of the nuance in the software that they might not think about right up front. And they're saying, hey, just do my account. I need to report for California or
Hmm.
CSRD or whatever it is. And so I think those questions are important. And often, I found that I don't get a full upfront cost. I've done
Yeah.
a bunch of interviews like this where I have.
It's difficult though. Like I'll give you my personal experience when I worked for carbon accounting software. Again, this was years ago and it was less mature. I'm sure it's changed, but we would price sometimes based on your employee size. So are you under 100 to 500? Are you over 500? And then make up a number if you're really big. Um, Sometimes based on your number of locations, which was more common for like retail or restaurant and less for technology. Sometimes some blend of it all. Sometimes it was just carbon accounting, and then we'd upsell a CDP response package because it is extra work. Like, and you wouldn't know that you had to do that early. It was difficult. So I'm gonna try to steel man the carbon accounting challenge to say, unlike many other softwares you're used to buying, the feature set is not always standard. Ty, I'm curious how you guys at Aptera approach that challenge. Maybe that's not a challenge anymore, or you solve it in a different way. Because the need of the sustainability person oscillates as the business, if you're sign a restaurant and today the restaurant has 500 locations, and at the end of the year, the restaurant has 700 locations, which happens very often, you now have 50% more work to do. Kind of makes sense that you'd want to charge more money. Like, how do you think about trying to offer transparent or at least maybe clear pricing?
Yeah, and so we're not nearly as good as you are. I love the pricing you all have. It's just like so clear, and there's no
We're
ambiguity.
in a different business, though. We're in a different business.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
but and I think through the process, though, some folks' needs may change in terms of what their risk report is and how much they're including or not, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that there's modifications you all make, but we don't publish prices on our website, but we are very clear in our scoping after discovery of what's included, right? And we talk about it as a total cost of ownership. So you
Mhm.
know exactly what's in this. There's not going to be a surprise when it comes to verification time. It's like, oh, you want us to support the verification? Well, that's an extra this. You want an inventory management plan? Well, that's an extra this. It's like, no, we stand behind our product and that's what we're going to be doing. And so, like, we'll itemize those things and show you what is going to be included with that. Now, for your example of, hey, let's say, acquisitions or divestitures, oftentimes, right, that requires a rebaseline, figuring out how and where it fits into, your overall inventory and strategy and target and everything else. We will have an open discussion about this is above a trigger for the amount of time we're expecting on this engagement, and we need to rescope this. We need to, reprice this, that kind of thing, or this can be absorbed. You're all good. Let's just keep rocking. And we're clear with our clients on that, and there is definitely a threshold with how big they are and what the size of the contract and the annual license or multi-year license that is. And sometimes we have more flexibility than we do with other folks. But
Um,
in the proposal, you know exactly what's in and what's out, and we try to make that as comparable to Hiba's points. When you're asking other folks, we try and say, what questions should you ask so you know what number ours looks like versus others. And I think that is just, I don't know, I hope that that's a service to the industry overall so that you don't have folks, sustainability pros that we love working with, that in 6 months have to come back and say, I need this much more money, then it makes them look not awesome. And we don't want that, right? We want our sustainability pros, whether it's our customer or not, to do the best work and get the best outcomes here.
Yeah, it feels like it's in large part, maybe again more than traditional software that other parts of the business are used to buying, about having a good relationship. Meaning the buyer, Hiba, needs to know what she wants, know how that might change, be knowledgeable enough about the problems to come to you and say, I need this in, that out. Trust me, I'm good. You, the vendor, the carbon accounting vendor, needs to be knowledgeable, transparent enough to say, hey, I'm doing my best here. Here's the thing. I'm going to eat a little bit of margin later on if you need a little help. Maybe I'll make a little more later on if you don't use it quite as much in a certain quarter, but like try to keep an open communication. So it is much more. This is one of the reasons something can be a challenging industry. I want to talk a little bit about the carbon accounting software industry broadly, because that's been through quite an arc that everybody in this industry have been through, whether you're a buyer, seller, or somewhere totally different. That's been one of the challenges, I think, of carbon accounting software in general, meaning in 2022 and three, carbon accounting received billions of funding.
Hmm.
There were many dozens of startups from all over the world that said carbon accounting is sliced bread. Everybody needs it. Everybody needs five of them. We're going to kind of all do a very similar thing. Some will get better at, we're going to niche into energy. Some will grow in Europe. Some are going to be for the enterprise. Some are going to be for the SMB. But there were dozens, and all were very similar. I think when that market contracted over the last year or two, as the laws got pushed out, as things changed, as people ran out of money, as venture moved into AI, you see a lot of carbon accounting startups that were posting a lot on LinkedIn 2 years ago, much quieter. You see some pivots, you see certain things changing. I'm curious, maybe Ty, you first, but how would you describe what it's been like to be the founder of a carbon accounting software? Obviously, with a long history before you guys became software. What's been your like emotional arc over the last 3 years, and how was that, as openly as you're able to? I'm sure many of the things you thought were going to be a fact in 2023 did not come true. Maybe you were wiser than the rest of us. Like, how has that affected your product strategy and how you've built over the last couple of years?
I mean, it's definitely been an emotional journey, physical and emotional, maybe. The I, I think where we are now is it's just slower than what we had anticipated. Like looking at 22 and 23, it was like, or 20 even, it was like, oh my goodness, this is a rocket ship. Everything's a rocket ship. And every company in the world of any size will have carbon accounting software in place by 2025. Like that was the
A
vision.
fact.
And it
Yeah.
was just like, let's go get everything
Yeah.
you can. And the market has still incrementally grown, but it has been incremental, right? And like there's been the brakes put on from a lot of different reasons in a lot of different places, but the work we're doing fundamentally is the same that we basically had in pipeline or in platform that we were planning on back then. We've had to reorient, I guess, a little bit. We were founded when we started the company, really founded on do good resource management and sustainability comes along, right? Energy efficiency, really good, operations management, those kind of things, really good supply chain understanding and engagement, and you can squeeze out a whole bunch of costs and get the best out of it. That's always been sort of our underlying DNA. And sustainability, just carbon for the sake of carbon, is interesting and good, but we have maybe swung that pendulum a little bit more back now to what are the positive ROI things and how do we make sure that
Mhm.
those are surfaced? It's a really solid business case. All of that has kind of come a little bit more into the center focus for
Does
folks.
that change what you build, or does it change more how you sell or how you talk about it?
Certainly changes how we've sold and who we're engaging with. And I think it changes what we surface. It's all been in the platform. It's just kind of what we surface at different times for folks so that they can use that not just as a compliance lever, but as a optimization and
Do you have a
a
favorite example?
we have a chart that slices. So think about a retail operation. You've got thousands of facilities across the globe. Slices pretty basically by kilowatt hours per square foot, kilowatt hours per dollar revenue. type of store concept, because most retailers have three, four, five different store concepts. And so all of these, plus now the addition of, some AI querying, can get you to, hey, these five stores are really outperforming. What's going on there relative to other facilities? And so I had a client run that query in their tool set, go engage those stores and pick, it was something around some building performance software that they had in there, that data then was like, we need to deploy this across all regions, not just this one thing.
Mhm.
And so we see now the benefit of that as new data comes in, we're going, yep, boom, tick down, tick down, tick down. And so she can then say, great, we're taking those learnings and being able to scale this across the organization. And they're obviously, now forecasting where and how they're going to save energy kind of globally. It pays for our software plus that software times five, when they're able to do something like that.
Yeah. Hiba, I kind of want to go in a similar order with you. We're going to touch upon like resource efficiency and the business case in a second. But I'm curious what your journey as a buyer and a user of these products and a receiver of our emails from the sales universe has been like over the last couple of years. Like, how has your understanding of what you need carbon accounting for, view of the market changed from peak hype and peak venture capital investment to what it is today?
Yeah, I mean, it really depended on one where I was at the time and what our goals were as a company. If we had scope three goals and supply chain goals, that carbon accounting software was really important for us to share transparently with our suppliers. As I sit today, it's from a regulatory perspective, right? We're looking at risk to the business. And so I saw the evolution as a lot of vendors popped up in a very short amount of time, and they didn't necessarily know what they needed to sell to organizations. And so, um, I saw from my perspective a lot of bells and whistles on things that if I didn't know any better, I would have paid a lot of money to get those different modules, and everything was a
What is the least useful bell and whistle or module that feels
Oh
useful?
my God. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd say like an automatic like CDP reporting module, because CDP reporting was never just an automatic click of a button. There was no way. I mean, that was always like 3 or 4 months of my life. And so I think those things that didn't have a necessarily a properly modeled um need or ask, I guess, from a customer perspective, um, that was getting a little frustrating for me when I was in the market for that, when I knew exactly what I needed. So I can
Mhm.
feel the frustration for sustainability professionals or finance professionals or ops professionals who actually don't know exactly what they need out of a software, and then they go out and say, "Hey, we actually just need to do this for our reporting requirements." I can see how frustrating and how difficult it can be to determine what you actually need and which modules you should actually sign up for. So I saw that evolution. Then again, you know, similar to you, it's been quiet now. I used to get a lot of sales calls for for software. I don't get as many. Um,
You're
and
lost. We're so much fun on the phone.
there was a lot
We're
of carbon accounting software that was tacked on to an existing platform
that was
that
a big, yeah.
that was
All
huge.
of those cut
All
that
kinds
limb.
of-
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and they were various names. I don't need to advertise here, but yeah, there were a lot of those that missed the mark or didn't necessarily pull in the right information. And so again, you just had to be vigilant as a professional buying that on this side of the fence.
Yeah.
How, like, your pivot from being in the accounting space to what you do now, I mean, much more focused. Has that been because you know exactly what you sell and you have, I think, much clearer sort of audience around that. Has that been like liberating and helpful, or is that like how have you seen that work with like your specific world, case around that?
Yeah. I'll answer that in a second. Really quickly, we always lose a couple of people and then gain a couple of people at the 30-minute mark as people go to meetings. So, hello, everybody. Talking to Ty Coleman, the founder of Optera, and Hiba Mooney, the AVP of Energy and Sustainability at formerly Stack Global, now the Exemplar Luxury Group. Mazel tov on your recent bankruptcy coming out party or whatever. Um, uh, it's a good question. So I worked in corporate accounting for almost 3 years. I published a book about corporate sustainability. It was a really interesting world. There are a lot of frustrations that I had with it. I mean, maybe first and foremost among them is that the customers that we worked with at the time, mostly small and medium businesses, did not know what to do with the information. Like
Mm,
all the stuff I was selling genuinely because I thought it was true. Oh, you measure your emissions and then you'll reduce them in all these wonderful ways, and then travel will go down and energy will go down, which is not, it wasn't a sales tactic. It's what I thought was going to happen, was not happening. And partially that was because of it's difficult to do, partially because it was the software and the market we sold to, whatever, there's a thousand reasons. And that frustrated me. And I kind of ran out of ideas about what the technology should be. And it's not an inspiring thing
mm,
to work for when you don't
mm,
know the problem you're solving really well. You don't have a lot more ideas to solve it. Risk has been really interesting because there's actually a very obvious, there's a very, carbon accounting is difficult partially because it's new. And the GHG protocol is like 20 years old. Like it is new. Climate risk is as old as time. It's just natural disasters. And so every company on earth, even smaller companies, have some sort of existing program or policy in place to deal with existing natural disasters. And
mm,
so it's been a really it's been freeing in the sense that like what we are solving is really clear in the short term, meaning there's this compliance thing. You got to write a report, like here's the stuff you got to do. And then it's also the ideas have been fairly endless because the problems of natural disasters are fairly endless.
totally
So
fair.
a lot of ideas, like also when you have too broad of, design likes constraints and you have too broad of a platform, what do you do first? Do you solve employee health and safety? Do you solve insurance? Do you solve disaster response notifications? Like all of those are possible to solve. Our challenge is how do you stay really focused?
Focus. Yeah. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. And then also like there's an ecosystem, right? Just carbon accounting has an ecosystem. Energy management is part of carbon accounting. Reporting is carbon accounting. Supply chain management is carbon accounting. There's an ecosystem. You can't do all of them, which is a big mistake in any carbon player, kind of like Hedge was
totally.
talking about. You have to pick which ones you want to do. I think I forgot to say this. I want to encourage people to ask questions. Yeah, chime in and make it useful. Hiba, Ty ended with saying that it's about what you do with the information. He gave the example of, well, if we can find these savings, it's very positive for the rest of the business. I know you have a lot of experience. Like when we did our prep call, your whole shtick was about how do I make this useful for the business beyond just another customer wants this information, another lawyer, another regulator wants this information. What are your favorite examples of how this has been financially lucrative for the business to do this work?
Yeah, if I didn't set up the sustainability program like that, we'd just be a cost center that everybody
Yeah.
ignored. And so it was really important for me to use this information to actually make changes within the business. You talked about climate risk. People just see that as natural disasters, but you're also talking about vulnerability of grids. You're talking about there's an opportunity there with demand response programs, which is what my team is currently expanding. So demand response, for those who are joining and don't know, is really when the grid is overloaded, you essentially sign up with the utility to curtail your energy usage during peak usage. And you'll get a notification to your inbox, and then you kind of scramble and figure out what your curtailment looks like, or you have a plan within your building automation system, and you kind of click a button and you say, okay, we're going to curtail for these 4 hours. And then you essentially get money back from the utility, which is fantastic. So you can go back and say, hey, we're actually making money on our energy usage. We as a team that's pulling in data that folks, for the most part, ignore. They're collecting it, but they're not analyzing it. So we're looking at energy usage. Ty mentioned EUI, energy use intensity. At each of our sites, we're comparing like for like. So when we acquired Neiman Marcus, back at the end of 2024. We all became one company. We were all looking at, I mean, similar footprints, right? It's a retail store, similar square footage. And so we could really extrapolate, hey, why is this store in this region operating at a much higher EUI than the same store down the street? And then that really led us to better, stronger partnerships with facilities. We have a great facilities team. So we were able to pull them in, do audits of stores, walk those floors together, show where we could reduce energy use right away, overnight. HVAC systems running overtime. My team has that data. We can see it in real time. And so we're able to give that information and then obviously present that out to our senior management team and say, hey, we saved, $1 million.
Would it be accurate to say that you guys are not the ones doing the work, you're the ones servicing the work that needs to be
Yeah,
done?
we are the implementation partners for
Mhm.
folks across the organization. And so we take that really seriously because we're giving them information that they might not necessarily have put into that context before. So yeah, we're not pressing the buttons, although my team prior to March, we were running all the building automation systems across the company. So facilities and my team were very, very closely partnered on that. And not all sustainability teams are set up that way. The energy management piece of this is something I set up about 2 years ago. And that gave us all of these synergies across the business when we went through our acquisition.
It sounds like your team actually has a more unique structure than I'm used to hearing about. Can you kind of talk through where you report up to, who's on your team, what they're focused on? It sounds traditionally what I'm used to is you have X number of people who report through legal or through finance, maybe through operations, and they collect data. They mostly deal with compliance, and sometimes the same person who does all that also tries to call the energy guy and it's like, hey, we should lower our bill somewhere. It sounds like you're built a little differently. Kind of can walk through your
We are, and a little bit of that is the expertise that I've kind of built over time on the team, and we're bringing in different pieces of the business that weren't necessarily watched over, and so I pulled them into the team. But yeah, about 2 years ago, I set it up as energy management and sustainability. So we have a big energy management pillar where we're dealing with all of our utility bills. We are interfacing with our aggregator for demand response. We're talking about utility rebates. So there's a big financial piece to my team. And then I have climate and environment, which is, your carbon accounting, which is what we're talking about here today, plus environmental compliance across the whole organization. A piece of that is also product stewardship. So we're looking at PFAS and we're looking at chemicals compliance
And
and
it's like one person who specializes in energy, one person does PFAS, one person who does something else, or like,
nope,
and they
we're
kind
all
of
getting
embed within
into
those
it together.
teams. You're
Now
all
we're all
doing all
here.
of it.
Yeah. So I have an energy management focus team, but then I also want to develop my folks. So, we are experts in many things on the team, and I think a lot of sustainability professionals will certainly feel kindred spirits there, where you feel like you need to be an expert in finance and facilities and energy management and accounting and all of the above. And then the third pillar of my team is social and environmental responsibility in the supply chain. So we're reviewing our suppliers and our vendors, doing audits, looking at risk essentially of all of our merchandise coming in, mostly from a human rights labor perspective, but also environmental responsibility. And then the last piece is sustainable merchandise. So we review sustainable certifications for merchandise. We have a sustainable merchandise edit on our website where customers can shop their conscience. So there's a lot going on at any given time on the team. And so carbon accounting is this one piece of it. I need this to run incredibly smoothly so that my team can focus on those other strategic pieces of the business that are drawing in ROI. Our sustainable merchandise, that's drawing in revenue. We calculate that, share that up with our management team. Our supply chain responsibility is addressing direct risk to the business with our imports and making sure that we are free of forced labor within our supply chain. And climate in itself is really, I've kind of like morphed it with energy management, where your energy use goes down, your emissions go down. We're also looking at energy procurement. So how can we consolidate energy procurement across the company in our deregulated markets, get the best rate through our broker and get the best rates through our energy suppliers. So we are looking at metrics all the time. That's why this carbon accounting piece needs to run so smoothly, but it does feed into all of these other decisions across the.
Do you want, go ahead, Ty.
I was just going to say that I know that I'm not the first to frame it like this, but we think about sustainability as like the great collaborator, right? They're the ones that touch so many different facets. They may not own in those individual facets, and Hiba is, I think, unique in some of the roles that she has, but they don't own facilities, they don't own fleet, they don't own utility management. They don't own supply chain, but they collaborate with all of those teams. And increasingly, we're seeing more folks embedded in each of those different functions that have a sustainability mandate. And you have your coordinator. It's not really, right? It's like chief sustainability officer or AVP, whatever that may be, that just runs the coordination around that. And we're just like, the professionals we work with are the best collaborators because they have to speak to strong expertise in each one of those individual areas.
Right.
Yeah. Uh, Hiba, I'm gonna start with you, and I'm going to ask Ty a similar question. But all those things that you just described, it almost sounded like you want carbon accounting to just work so that you can go do all the other stuff. Do you want or expect carbon accounting software to evolve in such a way that it does some of those other things or helps you with some of those other things? Do you want it to evolve into an energy management system? Do you want it to evolve into environmental responsibility in your supply chain? Do you want it to evolve into those other things? And if Ty came to you like, hey, like great news, you turn on this feature, we do this other thing for you, would be like, hell yeah, I have one less vendor to deal with? Or do you see it as a niche problem or just one pillar and everything else is separate?
I think I think they're separate, and that's okay. Mostly because I've seen softwares try to do it all together and it doesn't work. So yes, if Ty came to me with the best software he could have ever dreamt up that runs my team efficiently, great. But I think it's okay that it's separate because there's very different strategic decisions that I make within each of those pillars. Carbon accounting is one piece of this reporting side of things. For companies that have, external goals, they might look at carbon accounting a little bit differently. But carbon accounting for me does not need to be reliant or work together with all of the other pieces. I also have professionals who don't necessarily focus in the climate or carbon accounting space. So I need them to kind of work in their own space for social responsibility or sustainable
Mhm.
merchants. And my team is incredibly unique in what we have under our roof. So I wouldn't want to have a very bulky software that is, you know, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. I don't think that's very helpful for me.
I think it is different than what some other people want and how some other carbon accounting companies are positioning themselves. Um, a couple of the big ones, I'll name them, you don't have to, but Workiva and Watershed are trying to be much broader, maybe Watershed a little more than Workiva, but they're trying to combine carbon accounting and risk and supply chain engagement, and reporting and all these other things, and saying, hey, you don't, sure, we're not the best at any, well, maybe they'd say they're the best at carbon accounting and they're okay at the others, but now it's all in one place, maybe a cheaper price for you, less vendor management, and obviously their business is doing well. Do you think it's a personal taste kind of thing that you want specialists in everything that you do? Do you think it's just the type of business that Exemplar is, or do you think that strategy is short-lived and will blow up?
I just I just don't think that unless you had a lot of input from your customers over a long period of time. I don't know that the other modules or the other pieces of the software will meet the needs. There would be a heck of a lot of customization involved. And I have learned the hard way that over customizing your software platform just means, you know,
Yeah, software is best when it's off the shelf. That's
just
literally the point.
give me a
That's how the model
copy, like
works. Yeah.
off the shelf product. I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with customization because then you upgrade something and you break something else the next year.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's personal. I think you can also get better expertise and potentially better pricing if you went out to the market for that specific thing that that company has been working on for a really long time and has been working to perfect over a number of years, whether it's auditing or we have an AI based software that reviews all of our audit reports. It's incredible, and we're working to kind of we're working to improve it with them, but it's I hadn't seen anything like it on the market before we went out to them. And we partnered with them really early on. So I think being able to have the freedom to go out and say, hey, actually, I need this vendor to do this very specific thing, and I don't need all of this other stuff, the fluff on
Yeah.
the side. Um, yeah, I mean, again, show me a product that does it all well, and I will sign up for sure.
Yeah, I'll echo that. And I think that you know the stories probably as well as I do, folks that have tried to use their, you know, not their specifically, but other risk um, softwares and in a broader sustainability package and have gotten a C, out of it. And they're just like, oh, that wasn't really what we wanted. And so it's like, no, you go to Beehive for A, right? And you go here for this. And so you have those. I think the thing that we're starting to see more is the interoperability of those platforms. The partnerships can be there, and the way that we can use APIs and AI to help navigate data back and forth. So it doesn't feel like for you, we're going from this and then completely pivoting and then completely pivoting and having to learn new systems. We can actually bring these together in a much more streamlined way. So you're not having to do clunky data exchanges and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we're seeing. Go
Every
ahead.
startup founder knows the rule that you have to be niche to succeed. Like you have to solve one problem very, very well. Anyone who's ever read a blog post about startups knows that the answer. And then eventually everyone forgets that.
They
Where you
totally go
say,
off. Yeah.
oh, well, that worked well. Now, instead of doing more of that, I'm going to go do the next thing. Persephone just launched a cybersecurity product. I think
Yeah.
is ridiculous. I posted publicly about this on LinkedIn. I think it's not a good idea. But hey, what do I know? They seem to be doing okay. I'm curious for you, Ty. You don't give me the sense that you're going to go off and launch a cybersecurity product or
I don't
a,
think so. I don't
I
think
don't know,
so.
like a energy management, building management system, because building management is sort of kind of related to carbon accounting, but like it'd be a
Totally.
whole another thing. What are you guys working on? What like you've been doing carbon accounting broadly for call it 15 years. You've been doing carbon accounting software for whatever it's been 5 or 6. What is the next? Like you built every module, every feature in carbon accounting. What is the next thing that you are building in this world?
I, So I think that a lot of the tools for an operational footprint and decarbonization are there in some respects, and we're not going to duplicate the things that are already there. So if you mentioned energy management, right? Demand response, fleet management, right? These are things that have to come into
Yeah.
emissions accounting, but we're not going to go do those, or I'm not building your next telematics, fleet management tool. Okay. That's just not going to happen. Where we do see the biggest levers and the biggest opportunities is when we start getting into supply chain. And so that's really where our focus is. So your HIBA at Exemplar or HIBA at HPE or whoever, at one of these other large organizations, the biggest impacts in across your emissions portfolio is often going to be purchased goods and services, Cat 1 and Cat 11, your product that you sell. And so that's where we think about the places where the data, the analytics, and then the opportunities need to be built to support their decarbonization around that. So, how are you engaging suppliers to lift up their programs and build capabilities and engage in decarbonization levers, whether that's their own operations, whether that's their own supply chain as well, and the same in the product side too. The evolution of GHG protocol is going to give us more opportunities across the value chain to deploy decarbonization mechanisms that will produce meaningful changes in how we track towards net zero, something around that in the next 2050. And so that's where our head's at. The
Yeah.
biggest levers in scope
Um,
three, that's it.
Amazing. I'm going to come back to you each for one last question here. But we do this every single week. The Beekly's been going on. I think this is our 80th one.
That's
So I posted the next few on here. Next week, we're doing one with the folks from Climeworks and Tradewater on carbon removal and mitigation. If you buy offsets, that's going to be really, really great. The week after is going to be our most attended webinar ever with CDP's Chief Customer Success Officer. So
Simon's
Hiba,
great. Love Simon.
Simon's great. I'm very impressed by him. We're gonna have a very tough conversation because I got a lot of had a lot of got a lot of tough questions for him. But you talked about TDP as well. It's always been a 4 month process. I think that is exactly what they're trying to change because people hate that about that. So that's a really good one. The week after is Michael Rockwell from Hamilton Company, a healthcare manufacturer, and then the sustainability lead at Box, a large software and technology company. I also posted if folks are coming to New York for Climate Week, we throw a birthday party every year because New York Climate Week not only is my home as a New Yorker, but it's also the anniversary of me quitting my job to start Beehive. So we throw a fun birthday party. They're coming, sign up, and you can join us. And then the last post in there is we have a bunch of free courses around climate risk, enterprise climate risk management, insurance. So if you're trying to learn about this space, hopefully those are helpful. Okay, one last question each. You guys have been great. This has been super, super fun. We're going to go Ty, then Hiba. But what are you hoping is true 12 months from now for the carbon accounting market? What frustrates you today that you are hoping improve? And then Hiba, I'll ask you the same thing.
Um, Two things. I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give you two quick ones. I hope we stay the course on regulations. I'm largely looking at California here, whichever direction that is from where I'm standing right now. Stay the course, make it happen. I know we moved August to November, but like let's see this out. I think that that's going to be a great signal in the U.S. and then more broadly. I would say the same for CSRD. Don't continue to water that down. 12 months from now, I hope that we have these in place and we're starting to see true sort of action around that.
Yeah, it's great. Hiba?
Somewhere along the same lines, I think it's great that things like digital product passport, the climate rules, I think it's great that it's making our partners aware that they need to be doing their own carbon accounting and sharing it transparently. As a retailer, we have our own challenges with getting information from brand partners. And so I think it'll be the open kind of open field of sharing information. I only hope that gets better. We've been fighting it for years to get more transparency and get more data from partners across all industries, not just mine. And so I'd love to see that happen as folks just this becomes normal. This is built into the regulation, it's built into the fabric of what corporations need to do. And so yeah, you will not hear me say I'm angry about a more regulated space. I think it's a forcing function when the voluntary standards kind of start to slip away. So it's a good, strong foundation to stand on.
Just add, in the last 12 months, I've seen a resurgence in the amount of supplier engagement and true decarbonization work from where it was prior to that, which was like regulation hair on fire. It's kind of moved back to nope, we're being pragmatic, we're getting this done, and we're going to just kind of continue to beat this drum over the next decade. That to me, if that's still going in 12 months, that will also be very exciting.
Amazing. Thank you both very much, folks. Thank you for joining. If you're shopping for carbon accounting software, hit up Ty at Optera. If you're shopping for clothes, hit up Hiba. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Hope to see you next week. You guys rock. Thank you, Ty. Thank you,
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Bye.
Hiba.